Good afternoon, everyone. This is Miss Metcalf. Today for homework 4.1a, which is due tomorrow, October 28th, we're going to be talking about ratios. You must make sure to complete all of the notes and all of the practice must be done as well. Let's go ahead and flip to the inside. First, let's talk about what a ratio is. A ratio compares two things, and it is a multiplicative relationship between two items in a set. So again, we have a multiplicative relationship with that, and you'll see that a little bit later this week. Now we're going to use an example of making pancakes. You'll notice here we have two larger measuring cups and then one smaller one. The two larger measuring cups are going to represent our amount of mix, and then the smaller measuring cup is going to represent our amount of water. There's actually three different types of relationships or three different types of ratios that we can talk about. One of them is a part-to-part relationship. That's the first you see there. When we talk about a part-to-part, we would be talking about the mix being compared to the water. So here we have 2 cups of mix to our 1 cup of water. So that part-to-part relationship would be 2 to 1. Then we could have a part-to-whole relationship. In this case, we're choosing to use mix as our part. You could also use water, but in this one we are asked for mix first, compared to our whole, which is our total amount of ingredients. So the amount of mix we have is 2 cups, and the total amount of ingredients would be 3. So we have a 2 to 3 relationship for that part to whole relationship or ratio. Our final type of ratio would be a whole to part relationship. Again, in this case, our whole would be the total amount of ingredients, so that number goes first since that's the first thing that was asked in the ratio. And that's 3 total ingredients compared to our part, which is the water, and that's 1 cup. So we would have a 3 to 1 relationship or ratio. Now again, I did mention on that last ratio that order matters. Whatever we're asked for first in our problems, we actually need to put as our first number in the ratio, and then the second thing we're asked for would be our second number in the ratio, just like these examples. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide. We can also write ratios 3 different ways. We can write it in word form. For instance, the ratio of mix to water is 2 to 1. We could also represent that same ratio using a colon. So we would simply write the digit 2 colon 1, and that also means a 2 to 1 ratio. We can also write ratios as fractions. Again, since our first thing that we were asked for was the amount of mix, that would be your numerator, the 2. And then that would be compared to your water, which would be the denominator of 1. So we would again have a 2 to 1 ratio. On the next page, you're actually going to complete these practice problems on your own. Looking at recipe A, we're actually asking for you to write a part-to-part relationship, and that's water to mix. So you would want to write that out in words first, then in colon form, and then also as a fraction. Recipe B is asking you to look at a part-to-whole relationship, specifically water compared to the total amount of ingredients. Again, write that in words, then write that with a colon in between, and then finally as a fraction. Recipe C is asking for a whole to part relationship, which is your total to your mix. Again, write that in words first, then with a colon, and then also represent that ratio as a fraction. Those are the practice problems that you need to complete today, so you need to make sure that this is filled in before you come to class. Finally, let's summarize what we've learned today. Ratios describe a part-to-part, part-to-whole, or whole-to-part relationship. Ratios can also be compared using scale factors, which is the multiplying that you would do, and we will talk about that later this week. Ratios can also be written in 3 different ways. We talked about ratios can be written in word form, with a colon, or in fraction form. And the order of the numbers is important. Whatever you are asked for first in the ratio must be the first number that's listed. Then you compare that to the second thing you're asked for in the ratio. I hope these notes were helpful. Make sure you have it complete before you come to class tomorrow. Have a good night.